I'm Carol Ann Ford. I played Susan in Doctor Who. And I've been listening to the Fiveish Fangirls Podcast, and it's absolutely amazing. So, goodbye everybody, and it's been fun talking to you.
The Adventures of Squeak continue all the way to episode 496, the Fiveish Fangirls Podcast. According to music critic Tim Riley, Rubber Soul served as a step towards a greater synthesis of all the elements that throughout 1965 represented a major rock and roll explosion, rather than just the emergence of folk rock. Citing Dylan and the Rolling Stones as the Beatles' artistic peers during this period, he says that on Rubber Soul, these two acts inspire rather than influence their sound. And I would agree, but we'll get into that. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Fiveish Fangirls Podcast. So glad you joined us. Let's start off like we do every week with a virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Bengal.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello everyone.
Hello.
There's light at the end of the tunnel and I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Although in the words of Metallica, it might be a train.
Yeah.
A freight train coming my way. So
and we just
we'll see.
Nobody gets stone cold crazy in the process.
Yeah, really. Although I'm pretty sure everyone in the school is on the crazy train. So
yeah.
Yeah. I'm just gonna have Alice Cooper waiting. So that we read.
Yep.
Oh my, classic rock. Gotta love it.
Yep.
So not a whole lot of news, although the what news we do have kind of big because Disney has announced a new theme park in all places. Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. And this is not like a belated April Fool's joke. This is legit. Yeah, it's on the Disney website, on the Disney Parks blog. There's, a quote from Bob Iger. Yeah, Bob Iger says, as our seventh theme park destination, it will rise from this land in spectacular fashion, blending contemporary architecture with cutting-edge technology to offer guests deeply immersive entertainment experiences in unique and modern ways. So it's going to be on Yas Island. I have no idea if that's actually how you pronounce it, but I'm feeling sassy, so I'm like, yes, June's coming. Happy Pride, yes. So it's gonna be waterfront. That's cool. I mean, travel wise, that makes it fairly easy to get to if you're in the Middle East, Africa, India, parts of Europe, parts of Asia. So that's cool, I guess. So yeah. The company Morale I think is how we're pronouncing that. They are the Morale Group. And of course with Disney Imagineers as well. It should be quite the technical achievement, I guess. So I mean, you can go to the company's website and see some of the stuff that they've done. They've done stuff for SeaWorld and Warner Brothers and Ferrari. So that's cool. Well, I guess they know a thing or two about that type of thing. So I mean, there's some concept art. I'm probably going to use that term very loosely. Because this far out stuff, I'm sure, it's subject to change. So yeah. So here we go. Speaking of geographical pluses, the UAE is located within a 4-hour flight of 1/3 of the world's population. It is home to the largest global airline hub in the world. So yeah. Getting people there, not a problem. So, but that's really all we know. Like no deadline, no plans for like when they want to hope this is open, not even when they're going to start breaking ground, you know, ideas of how big it's going to be, like how many lands, how many hotels, that sort of thing. I'm sure it's going to be quite the undertaking. So, we're looking at years, I'm sure, before it becomes an actual thing. But yeah, that was not on my bingo card for any time, actually. Oh. Obviously, the Disney community has their opinions. Whether this is a good thing, a negative thing, neutral. I currently am taking the wait and see if this actually happens approach,
Mhm.
actually. Just because things that can
Yeah.
happen.
Uh-huh.
Stuff can change, especially on a global scale, and
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about that part of the world. Unfortunately, it's
Mhm.
not I mean,
Yeah.
UAE is a big, especially, Abu Dhabi, but the UAE in general, I know is very, very popular as far as travel is concerned. Like it's just like over the top, uh as far as like technology and just the opulence and everything. And depending on how the currency conversion goes, sometimes American dollar used to be able to go pretty far there. I don't know if that's the case now. uh so
Your mileage
um
may vary depending on the day.
yeah, exactly. So you know yes, there are some hesitations as well, just because uh you
Political
know
climate.
political climate is a little suspect at the moment.
Dicey.
um yeah, uh, not just for us, not just for them, just kind of globally.
Yeah.
Things are a little
Yeah.
shaky as a whole.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just gonna, I'm very much taking the wait and see approach on this.
Yep.
Like I'm really kind of, I'll believe it when I see it at this point. So um I don't know if Disney's spending this kind of money right now is the best thing they should be doing, considering a lot of people are feeling priced out of the parks here in the United States
Yeah.
as far as pricing goes. And then they're going to go and open a park in a place where your mileage may vary when it comes to American dollars. Now if you're coming from other countries, again, your mileage may vary as far as currency exchange. But
Right.
if you're coming from someplace closer geographically, that might be more in your favor
Right.
monetarily wise. And there are other parts of the country that are doing better economically than we are. So
Yeah. And
I don't know if
it's
it's the best investment
well, and just I mean,
in
I'm also
general.
thinking security too. I mean, ooh,
Yeah.
can we say I hate to say it, Target?
Yeah.
Uh,
Possibly. I mean, the fact that
eh,
they're putting it on an island just seems like
yeah.
not the most. But again, I've never been to that part of the country. I've never been out of the United, well, I can't say I've never been out of the United States. I've been to Canada. I've been to parts of Mexico. I've been to the Caribbean. I've been to Jamaica. I've
I
never
mean,
been
I've
anywhere
been
outside of the U.S. that requires crossing a
Yes.
major ocean.
right.
How's
I mean,
that?
I've been to Europe, but I haven't been in that other portion. So it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. So I only know what I have heard. So
Mhm.
that's not
Fingers
necessarily,
crossed it goes for the best, but
yeah. Again, I'm not
yeah.
holding my breath on that. I'll believe it when I see it,
Mhm.
When they actually like start breaking ground and stuff gets built,
And we get more
then
pictures. Yeah.
yeah, then you might perk my ears up. But until then, it's just it's
It's
an
on
announcement
paper.
that may or may
Yeah.
not happen.
Yeah.
So we shall see. That's really the biggest piece of news, which I mean, that's pretty big. So
Yep.
otherwise, it's kind of been all quiet on the Western Front. So, that being said, in your feeds, we do have a new episode of Gold Standard, where I was not able to join in because I got stuck at work doing paperwork because the papers at work seem to multiply like tribbles on the Enterprise some days.
And not a Klingon in sight.
Or gremlins. Maybe somebody's feeding them after midnight. I don't know.
Somebody let him loose in a pool.
Yeah. So I was not able to join in. I will be honest with you. I didn't feel that bad that I was not able to join in because I did not really care for this movie. I did watch it. I did not care for it. But if you want to hear Nick and Zan's opinions about the 2018 film Everybody Wants Some, with multiple exclamation points in the title, you can do so. It is in the feeds for Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast. I will say, soundtrack banging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because of the time period it set in. But other than that, it's to me, it was just kind of your generic late teens, early 20s college co-ed, comedy. If you're into that type of comedy,
Your mileage may vary.
yeah, your mileage may vary. So, although it was fun, I will say it was funny to see a certain. Well, we'll be talking about the probably the thing he's more known for now. A certain Thunderbolt is in said movie. So
Mm-hmm.
a certain dime store Captain America before he was dime store Captain America may or may not have had a role in this movie. So
Gotcha.
So I guess if you really want to see movies may win Oscars, but you're the real gold. Support Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, on Patreon and help us continue our journey through every Best Picture winner. Join the club at patreon.com/goldstandardoscars. Wyatt Russell was up to before he joined the MC. Here's your chance, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's that. Moving on to feedback. Of course, we got some feedback from Shalane. First, talking about some of those, I guess, announcements. So like Phoenix. Of course, she's got to point out that they're getting a number of Disney-related actors and stars from other fan favorite franchises, including the aforementioned John Ratzenberger, Pixar's Golden Voice, Nika Noni Rose, Princess and the Frog, Richard Karn from Home Improvement, Omri Katz and Vanessa Shaw from Hocus Pocus, and as I said, as I was telling Chauncey, I was like, between those two and Doug Jones, we got a nice little Hocus Pocus reunion going on there. So, of course, Michael Rooker,
Yep.
the MCU Guardians of the Galaxy, Garrett Hedlund from Tron Legacy, and Frank Grillo from the MCU.
Nice.
She has a question. Have you girls ever thought about doing an episode on the Oceans trilogy?
Ooh.
Yes, I would almost say actually Oceans trilogy asterisk.
Right. Yeah.
I would want to include Oceans 8.
Yes, because that's the ladies' take, correct?
Yes, and it is. I mean, it is connected, and not just because
Yeah.
Sandra Bullock plays Danny Ocean's sister.
Right.
There are other connections to the Oceans franchise as well.
Yes.
So yeah, I would have to. I would say trilogy asterisk quadrilogy.
Quadrilogy. I'd be for it.
So
I'd be for it. I
Yeah.
like it, and there's a certain alum from a certain TV show that Brittany and I both like that happens to be, and
there's a lot of really good actors actually in the entire series. Across all 4 movies, it's it's star-studded. It's really good. So and a number of those actors actually we've talked about in some cases. Their names have been pulled from the hat. I'm looking at you, Don Cheadle. Among others. So yeah, definitely a possibility. It's on the list, as we'll say. When I saw the Thunderbolts trailer in theaters, they also showed the trailers for Tron Ares and what I believe was the first Fantastic Four teaser. That's cool. I had not actually seen the Tron Ares trailer. I knew it was out there. I just hadn't watched it. And yes, it did play before Thunderbolts for me as well, and it was pretty cool to see it on the big screen, and it was really cool to see the real world react to light cycles. They're like, "What the hell? We don't know how to handle this." So, that could be fun. Speaking of re-releases, here are some movies celebrating anniversaries this year and getting theatrical re-releases. Movies like Babe, Madagascar, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, recently reviewed on Gold Standard. Jaws, soon to be reviewed on Gold Standard, and the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
And I did happen to see another trailer get dropped for the live-action Lilo and Stitch.
Yes,
it looks. I'm even a little bit more sold than what I was to begin with. So
I mean, it looks good.
It does look good.
The Stitch mixed in with the live action. He fits. He doesn't stand out with like this is obviously CGI compared to everything else. They've done a very good job of mixing the animation with the live action. I'm just concerned that it's not going to have the same heart
that's
the cartoon has. So I mean, we've already reviewed Lilo and Stitch.
Oh yeah.
So you can go listen to us gush. We can gush about the movie, and then I have to unfortunately tell you about the chili dog burps of now defunct Disney attraction.
Ooh.
So yeah, go up to any diehard Disney fan and just look them in the eye and say chili dog burps and see how they react. That tell you a lot about them. So yeah, you can go listen to that. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Going to the Tonys and musicals. Musicals I'm excited about from the Tony nominations. Death Becomes Her. I want to see the movie too. Oh my god, you've not seen that movie? Lane, you need to get on that. It's camp as all get out. Fantastic. I mean, it's very of its time period as well, but it's so good. It's like, I can't believe you've not seen it. Although it's been a hot minute since I've seen it, but I have seen it. But I mean, it's Meryl Streep, so you automatically know it's going to be halfway decent, and it's directed by Robert Zemeckis. So
it
that's
another thing going for it. Yeah.
Yep, and you'll see, and it's Bruce Willis looking like you've never seen Bruce Willis ever uh looked before and probably ever will.
Hmm.
Oh, maybe Happy Ending, Sunset Boulevard, Gypsy, and Betty Boop the musical. I've listened to their soundtracks and love them. I'd love to see Sadie Sink in her current play before she leaves, but that may not be possible. Big news, I finally saw the stage production of Wicked here in Salt Lake. It was my first touring Broadway musical. I saw Wicked before the Wicked movie, still waiting for the trailer to drop. So, that's very cool. Yeah, actually, once Wicked leaves Salt Lake, I believe its next stop is here.
Oh,
So,
nice.
there may be a stop there in between. I don't know how much longer it's in Salt Lake, but yeah, it's quickly approaching its run here. So very excited for it to come to Indy. Oh, random fun connections. Screens of Pride and Prejudice and Revenge of the Sith were playing in the same space. Jane Austen and Star Wars. What a combo! Yeah, that is true. And then she finishes with, I figured something out, but I'm saving it as a surprise for either your 500th episode or your 11th anniversary,
Ooh,
which both quickly are coming up.
coming
So,
up.
Oh my God,
So
yes.
yeah. Oh man, that is hard to believe.
I know. That's wild.
Mhm.
So, thankfully, knock on wood,
Mhm.
that once the school year is ended for both myself and Chrissy's children, Chrissy will be able to return to
Yeah.
us for a little bit at least. So,
Yes.
and then depending on the kiddos' schedule for school in the fall, we shall see. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, that is wild. So, well, interested to find out what your surprise is, Shalane. But until then, thank you for your
Yes.
feedback.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
Pop culture is for everyone, and Indie PopCon is where we come together to celebrate it. Meet your favorite creators, show off your cosplay, and geek out with fellow fans. Join the fun at indiepopcon.com.
All right, moving on. Going back to classic rock, we are headed back to the Beatles catalog
Yes.
with their, well, depending on which release schedule you use.
Mhm.
Because it depends on whether you're talking UK or US releases.
Right.
But technically it is Rubber Soul is the 6th studio album by the Beatles.
Mhm.
So it was released December of 1965, and then in the US in 1966. So but yeah, it was this was, for this being their 6th studio album, which is wild, because
Yeah.
for most of their career the Beatles had been kind of recording and releasing like 2 albums a year,
Right.
which combined with touring is a lot.
Yes. And considering how long they were together,
Yes, I mean
you
that's
know,
also, I mean that's why their catalog is as big as it is, considering they were, the band that we know as the Beatles was only productive as far as like recording and releasing for less than a decade.
right.
So the fact that their catalog is as big as it is because early on EMI was like, cranking it out. It also
Mhm.
helped that early on, the guys were doing covers, with a
Right.
combination of writing their own stuff. They were tending to write very radio friendly, fan friendly pop
Right.
songs, a lot about love, I want to hold your hand, she loves you, that sort of thing.
We could say almost family friendly.
Yes. But by this point, we're only talking late 65.
Right.
So,
That's only a couple of years since they restarted recording.
Right, exactly. But in this time period of only 2-3-ish years, that the Beatles have been a proper recording, releasing, touring band, they have grown a lot. They have experienced a lot doing the
Yes.
whirlwind tours,
Mm-hmm.
as we've mentioned before. Does a lot. it's it's a mentally taxing, it's physically taxing, but at the same time, it allowed them to see a lot, meet a lot of people, um, see parts of the world that, four guys from Liverpool, which we all know, very blue collar, not very high up in the economic food chain as far as, towns go. They get allowed in to see places that four guys from Liverpool probably never could have dreamed of.
Right.
But because of all that, the guys have grown and evolved quite a bit. Obviously, they're still going to go through some growth and evolution, but this album in particular is the first significant shift from the mop top pop,
Yes.
making girls scream, lose their minds Beatles that we have come to know and love, and more into the let's start experimenting in the studio. Let's start writing songs that mean a bit more, that are more from our life experiences. Um, yeah, things that things we felt, things, people we've met, experiences we've had, um, influences that they've, more new music that they've been introduced to, because while they're creating music, obviously other people are creating music. Just in general, rock is shifting at this point. The Rolling Stones are starting to also become a big part of the British invasion, but of course they have their own sound. Bob Dylan is becoming quite popular. Obviously, he's folk, but still, he's a major musical influence. You've got the Beach Boys that are still a few years away from Pet Sounds, I believe, but they're still making a name for themselves. You have bands like the Byrds, that are also making headlines and making people take notice as far as their writing, their musical styles, even just the design of their album covers. You can see that and hear that in the influence of this particular album. Also a big thing that's also really big in rock and roll: drugs.
Yep.
So at this point, the guys have met Bob Dylan. So he's not just a musical influence, but a personal influence, in more ways than one. Not just meeting someone who is, is going to become a legend in music history. But he's also the one that introduced the pot, as legend has it. And for that, the guys that were forever changed. They will, depending on who you talk to. I found a short on YouTube, and I don't know who this guy is. He's somebody. They interviewed him. I'd have to Google him, I guess, to find out who he is. But he went, in after this album was released, and he had gone to his girlfriend at the time's house, and she was like, "Hey, do you want to hear the new Beatles album?" He's like, "No, I don't want to hear any of that bubblegum pop, blah blah blah." And she's like, "No, I think you'd really like it." And so she puts it on, and the music is like, he's like, "Oh yeah, this is definitely different." And then he looks at the album cover, and like the album cover is somewhat influenced by the Birds. Um, uh, the so I believe, I don't know if it's like the cover for the single or what, something related to Mr. Tambourine Man. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to the Birds album, art. Um, but it is somewhat influenced, and the guys have said that. In fact, there's a joke about how I forget who it was, which Beatle it was. It may have been Ringo that was like, it looks like we stole their outfits. It's a shame they didn't steal their outfits from us, or something like that. But the anyway, this guy looked at the sleeve, and he was like, oh my god, they're stoners. Like, he could just tell from the way that they look, like they're doing drugs. At least they're smoking pot.
They thought they were going to be okay for pictures, but no. Or
it's okay. I mean, if you look at it, it does look, especially John, more than anything, John has kind of that like eyes half shut, like he's about to doze off, just because like pot makes him sleepy. Kind of look about him. So, I mean, the photo was taken actually in John's garden. They took just a regular photo, and then they projected it in a way that allowed him to do that weird distortion that it has on the sleeve. But yeah, definitely. Ringo calls it the Beatles' departure record. Because of their use of drugs, among other things. Ringo said, we were expanding in all areas of our lives, opening up to a lot of different attitudes. That's a PC way of saying we were doing a lot of drugs. And it was not just pot, because at this point, both George and John had also been using LSD. And John actually called it the Pot album. So Paul said it was more beatnik. Music and drugs were big influences. So another thing that factored into this album was the fact that EMI gave them 4 weeks to record this album so that they could release it before the end of the calendar year. The guys had been on tour and hadn't really had a chance to write a whole lot. And they didn't want to go in and just do another, at this point, what had been considered a typical Beatles album. So they hungered down, called in George Martin, because that's who you call, someone you trust, and someone that they knew they could trust, and someone who would let them and listen to them experiment. George Martin was also the only person that could read and write music. None of the guys can. Paul still can't. And George Martin, they worked with George Martin enough, and he understood them, that they could explain what it is they wanted, and he could be like, okay, this is how we can make that happen.
Right. Or I can steer you in this direction to get this, and then we tweak from there.
Right. Yeah. So, George Martin had, his importance to the Beatle lore cannot be emphasized enough.
Right. Like
and
he's called the fifth Beatle for a reason.
yes, yeah,
The unspoken fifth Beatle. And like I said, we can make an argument for Billy Preston for being the sixth with To Get Back.
yeah, yeah. So, so yeah, they had like 4 weeks. The actual recording sessions took about 13 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quick. Because
Yeah.
nowadays,
Yeah, really. Yeah. 13 days, 113 hours spread over 13 days. So do the math.
yeah.
Those are
They
some
pulled some
long work
all-nighters.
days.
Yeah.
Yes.
They pulled some all-nighters.
Yeah. Because they wanted it done in time for pre-Christmas so that they would have time to record their Christmas quote unquote album that gets sent out to the fan club members. So yeah, they were on a bit of a time crunch.
Mhm.
But they were not touring. They weren't filming anything. They weren't doing anything radio wise, like interviews or anything. They only paused twice for the music of Lennon and McCartney, which was going to be a television special, as a tribute to the Lennon McCartney songwriting partnership. And their other break was so that they could get their MBEs of Buckingham Palace from Her Royal Highness Queen Elizabeth II. So, otherwise, they didn't really stop, except for maybe the occasional sleep and writing, a quick nap, and then some more writing, and then recording. Lather, rinse, repeat.
Mhm.
So, while this is their 6th studio album, this is actually going to be only their 2nd album that could contain only original material. And of course, a lot of the songwriting responsibilities fall on Paul and John, but they needed they needed the other guys to step up, and unfortunately at this point Ringo not really doing a whole lot as far as writing his own music. George, on the other hand, George was starting to become more of a prolific songwriter himself, which that helped quite a bit. So thankfully they did have some stuff that they had bits and pieces of when doing the album for Help that never got used because they never got completed, so they were able to take some of that stuff, like the song Wait,
Mhm.
that could have gone and Help if they'd finished it, but they didn't. So we'll go track by track here momentarily.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is, as we go through the tracks, we'll point out, the introduction of new and sometimes unconventional instruments, or the use of instruments in an unconventional way, and how some of the tracks were more personal and that sort of thing. So, the thing is we have 2 different albums here. We have the UK version, which, is obviously two sides. We're talking about albums here, kids. We do this every
Mhm.
time. These things called records
LP.
made out of vinyl.
Yeah.
They sell them even now, new.
Uh-huh.
Metallica owns their own pressing album pressing
Ooh.
company,
Nice.
and manufacturer. So, so yeah, you have the UK version, and then you have the US version. So the UK version has 14 tracks.
Okay.
US has 13.
All right.
The
I could
UK version,
probably guess
yeah.
which one got cut from the US version, but we'll
Well,
see.
the
My guess
UK
is right.
version, yeah, the UK version, they removed 4 tracks,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and added 2.
Okay.
So yeah, the UK version is Drive My Car, Norwegian
Mhm.
Wood, You Won't See Me, Nowhere Man, Think for Yourself, The Word, Michelle, and then on side 2, it's What Goes On, Girl,
Mhm.
I'm Looking Through You, In My Life, Wait, If I Needed Someone, and Run for Your Life.
Yep.
The US version has I've Just Seen a Face, which is also from
Okay.
Help,
Right.
Norwegian Wood, You Won't See Me, Think for Yourself, The Word, Michelle, It's Only Love, also from Help, Girl, I'm Looking Through You, In My Life, Wait, and Run for Your Life.
Okay. So different setups.
Yeah. So Drive My Car, Nowhere Man, What Goes On, and If I Needed Someone only appear on the UK version. I've Just Seen a Face and It's Only Love only appear on the US version. So yeah, going track by track, gonna be a little hard because we're kind of have to jump around. And there's we're not necessarily gonna get into the songs from Help, but yeah, we might
Right.
a little. Because we need to do Help at some point, and that includes
Mhm.
the movie as well.
Right.
Because it's very much like A Hard Day's Night. You kind of have to do the album and the movie together. Because yeah, they kind of go together. I mean, the cover art for the Help album is literally from the movie. So those outfits the guys are wearing are in the movie.
Mhm.
So kind of connected. But we'll stick with the UK version because that is the version that got released first. So ladies first in this case, Your Majesty. Uh so we've got Drive My Car. So that is very much a fun song. It is the music is Paul's, the lyrics are Paul's and John's. So the song it's pretty straightforward. It's a story about an actress's desire to become a film star, and essentially telling the narrator of the song that he can be her chauffeur. Um, so it's somewhat tongue in cheek because at this point the Beatles are so big and their celebrity status is obviously very high. Um, so and depending on how you want to look at it also may a bit innuendo filled, double entendre esque, if you want to look at it that way. So kind of depends on how you want to interpret those lyrics. Um so that is one that Paul does do live. So
Mhm.
that is fun. Next up is Norwegian Wood, parentheses, this bird is flown. This one is about an affair John had while still married to Cynthia. And um I mean, if you just listen to it, because that's the thing is that the Beatles start to get more thoughtful in their songwriting. Some of these tracks and some of the stuff in the future, if you just listen to it without really analyzing it, it's like, oh, because that like this is just like, oh, it's John. It's kind of folksy, it's kind of Dylan-esque. And the lyrics
Mhm.
are a little like, isn't it good Norwegian wood? And it's like, well, what exactly does that mean? But then you think about Dylan and him as a lyricist, and some of his stuff doesn't necessarily make sense, like a Rolling Stone. What the hell does that mean? Uh so you could kind of just be like, oh, it's John talking about an encounter with a girl, and things didn't, he thought maybe he'd get lucky and it didn't, and when he woke up the next morning she left, and oh well, but of course, this being John, there's got to be, well, it doesn't always have to have a bit more to it. That's the thing, is John doesn't,
Mhm.
people would assume if John wrote it, it had a deeper meaning. Not always.
Nope.
And when confronted with that question, John would be like, sometimes it's just whatever came out of my head at the
Right.
time.
Or his response would be something with tongue firmly planted in cheek and making you like, okay, is he pulling a fast one on us, or is he actually telling the truth?
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. So, yeah. Uh, but in this case, um, if you uh if you lit the end of the song, after he's woken up and realized the girl is gone, and it sounds like he's like, oh well, he's still at her house, he lights a fire and just kind of, takes a moment to be like, alone again. No, in this case, when he says he lit a fire, it means he burned down her house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, in this case, John didn't literally burn down someone's house, but that's what he means in the lyrics when he's singing, so I lit a fire, isn't it good?
Mm.
Because apparently Norwegian wood is this really cheap, like, wood paneling or something, I guess, that he thought would burn really easily. It's
And then it's
John.
not, and then probably, and this comment is, isn't it good Norwegian wood? Probably because of how quickly it burned.
Yeah.
Great, more insight. Yay.
Yeah. I mean, I think we say this every time that we do a Beatles album. It's John.
Yeah,
Uh,
John.
That's all there really is to it,
It's
kind
just,
of. It's
yeah.
like, it's John.
Mhm.
Like I said, sometimes the lyrics actually mean something. Sometimes they don't. It's John.
Yep.
It's just
Mhm.
whatever mood he's in.
Yep.
In this case, the idea of burning down the house is his way of maybe like getting rid of the evidence so that Cynthia never finds out. I don't know.
Mhm.
You could think of that as a way of interpreting, I guess. Um, next up, one of my favorite tracks, not just on this album, but one of my favorite Beatles songs, like in my top 10 probably, is You Won't See Me,
Mhm.
which is a Paul McCartney track, and is one of several songs that will appear on this album where he is bemoaning the slowly yet not dying relationship between him and Jane Asher.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Yeah, because
Cause I think it started off with For No One.
yeah,
If
if
memory
there's kind of
serves.
a loose trilogy in here that's kind of the Jane Asher trilogy, but they
Mhm.
don't necessarily appear in the order of the story that
Mhm.
Paul is kind of telling. So, but yeah, at this point, um, Paul wanted to settle down with Jane. Jane did not. Because Paul's idea of settling down was her becoming a stay-at-home wife and eventually a stay-at-home mom. And Jane had her own career. I mean, she had her
Yep.
own career even before she met Paul.
Mhm.
She was an accomplished model, an actress, and other things. And actually, during this time period, she signed on for like a new campaign or something that would take her traveling somewhere. and Paul did not want to hear it, essentially. So, Paul, I'm so glad you grew out of that misogynistic attitude. That being said, I still love the song, but you're a bit of a misogynist here, Macca, and I'm glad you grew out of it. That's probably because Linda would not put up with that shit.
Right.
That, and they just matured as a person. So, but I like the harmonies in this one. So, it's yeah, it's got just good. I don't know.
I mean,
There's
those
just there's
ooh la la's are almost kind of
yeah,
reminiscent of, a little bit of like Fool on the Hill, and you can tell Fleetwood Mac
yeah,
later on with, I think it was You Make Loving Fun or Say You Will, one of the two where they have those ooh la la's kind of as a nod, and it's like,
yeah. I mean, there's several tracks on here, and this is an interesting thing. Listening to the Beatles albums in general, especially the quote unquote earlier stuff, is everything was done in mono.
yeah.
We're so used to stuff in stereo now, if not multi-point stereo,
Yeah.
not just left and right, but like
Good old
multi-point
Atmos.
stereo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you listen to, obviously the Beatles catalog has been remastered, re-released, some of the albums multiple times. There's special editions out there and that sort of thing. Occasionally someone will get the bright idea to remix something into stereo, and it's weird.
Right. It's
If
just like,
you
give me
if you're so used
good
to
old mono
listening.
version that I'm used to, please and
Right.
thank you.
That being said, there's something about even in mono, listening to it in a way that you really get to hear the mix.
Yes.
So if you've got a good, either good sound system,
good
that you
set of
can listen to,
headphones,
a good set of headphones, maybe your car has a really good sound system. In my case, it tends to be both. But yes, I do tend to listen to a lot of things with headphones, and I do have a nice pair of Bose headphones.
Ooh, nice. Yes.
And there are several tracks on here where the guys, I mean, obviously there's a lot of overdubbing, but even without the overdubbing, they still have to harmonize well for the overdubbing to work.
Oh yeah.
Is the thing, because if the harmonies don't mix, overdubbing it ain't gonna do nothing except make it sound muddy.
Right. Yep.
So, but yeah, there's several tracks on here that listening with a good set of headphones, that even if it's in mono, you're only hearing it in one ear, it still sounds really, really good. Some of their harmonizations. And this is one of those. So it also, Paul has described it as very Motown flavors, and I can hear that too.
Yeah.
It is a little bit, Four Tops,
Temptations.
The Temptations, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, So yeah, that's and I think that's also one of the reasons why I love that track, just because it's like, oh, the harmonies just sound so good. And it's just a fun track. Obviously it's not the happiest track.
No.
But I don't know, there's just something about it that just like, ugh, I love it.
I mean, You Won't See Me is almost the kind of the bookend to No Reply. In a way.
True. Very true. So next up, Nowhere Man. This is a bit of a autobiographical John song. And he it's a reflection of he's essentially having another existential crisis, something John Lennon had quite often, especially when he's using LSD. In John's case, LSD equals existential crisis. Um, um, and it's essentially John conveying his feelings of inadequacy. Obviously, it's in the third person, talking about the Nowhere Man. Although he does also say, isn't he a bit like you and me? So, it's not all third person. He does point out that it's like, yeah, we're all kind of like this. And it is, again, has some good harmonies and vocalizations. It has a little bit of a psychedelic feel to it, especially in the I guess it'd be the chorus / bridge, I guess.
Right, yeah.
So Nowhere Man would actually go on to appear on the soundtrack for Yellow Submarine and in the cartoon.
Yep.
Where the Nowhere Man actually becomes an actual person, a character. In the cartoon. God, I'm so excited when we get to Yellow Submarine. Oh, I love that movie. So yeah, this is it's melancholic, it's a little sad, but at the same time it's not necessarily entirely what's the word
There
I'm
are
looking
some
for?
up moments when
Yeah.
the organ starts to play that doo-doo-doo.
Yeah. I mean, some of the music is a bit upbeat, but even just the idea of them singing, Nowhere Man, please listen, you don't know what you're missing. It's like, yeah, this guy is struggling, but there are people out there willing to grab his hand, either literally or metaphorically,
And
and
help him.
show him, and give him a leg up and show him that, he doesn't need to continue on this never-ending cycle of self-loathing. So, yeah, it's like it's sad, but there's some hope to it, I guess, is the how I'm trying to so eloquently put this. So yeah. And its use in Yellow Submarine is it's very psychedelic. It's very colorful. Uh so as the entire movie is. And then we get to George's first track, Think for Yourself. Which is also Dylan influenced. It's it's not a love song, it's more of a it's not like an anti-love song, because the lyrics could not apply to an ex, but it could also apply to like a friend or family member. It's really just it's you could almost fashion, you could almost look at it as kind of a protest song.
Oh yeah.
Depending on it's like, think for yourself, because I'm not going to do it for you.
Right. It's just like, or you're asking me for advice. I've tried to give it to you before and you haven't taken it. So why ask? Just go and
Exactly.
Do what you want to do and go where you're going to.
Yeah. It's like it's like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's like, you're your own person. You need to figure it out.
Yep.
It's very much so. It's like, this is very much a song that definitely diverts from what the Beatles had been doing up until this point. So yeah, it's this also appears on the soundtrack for Yellow Submarine. It technically appears in the movie, but not as a whole song. They actually only use a little bit of it. So towards the end, towards the denouement, the big grand finale. So, but it does make an appearance in Yellow Submarine. So, okay. So next up is the word, uh, and it is John's again ruminations on love and what love means. It's well, here's a quote from John. The word is all about getting smart. It's the marijuana period. It's the love and peace thing. The word is love, right? It seems like the underlying theme to the universe. Everything that was worthwhile got down to this one love thing. So yeah, and I mean the summer of love is coming.
Right.
It's just a few years after the 67 summer of love, baby. Excuse me. Yeah. Again, it depends on how you want to interpret it. So you could take it literally, you can take it metaphorically, you can take it existentially. It's kind of up to you. So yeah. And then Michelle is the last track on side one. This is actually a song, well, an idea for a song that Paul had in his pocket for quite a long time. Sometime in the 50s, actually. And excuse me. It's Paul had to go to a friend who knows French to be able to put the French words in there. At least grammatically, it makes sense in French. Obviously, no hint at trying to pronounce it so that it sounds more French. It comes off as very as someone who's just kind of reading French words phonetically on a sheet of paper. So it's like, I mean, essentially what he's saying is in French, these words go together well. So he's essentially repeating what he's already said in English in French. It's this love song to this girl who is presumably French, and there's a language barrier. Like, I don't know French. Presumably she doesn't know a lot of English. So he's, trying to confess his love to her, and he does not have the language for it, literally, by not knowing really any French. So instead he's just like, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, which kind of makes me think of that scene in Singing in the Rain, when Kelly's character, when they're first doing their attempt at doing a talkie, and he's supposed to do this long flowery speech, and he's like, can I just say my usual I love you bit, and that's what he does, and then that's what gets shown in the movie theater, and people are laughing at it, and the kid walks out of the theater just like, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. Because it's like, but he doesn't know what else to say, because he does not have the vocabulary for it. So it's cute
until he learns some more, according to the
lyrics. Yeah, exactly. So exactly. So all right. Next track. What Goes On? And this is a originally Lennon-penned song. John had written this early on in the Beatles' career. They attempted to record it in 1963. It just didn't happen. And so they decided that, because they were pressed for time to finish this album. So once again, let's pull on something that we already had something already semi-created and see if we can flesh it out. And they did, um, with, Lennon and McCartney, and ends up being a Ringo vocal lead track. And actually, this would give Ringo his first songwriting credit. So he has credit on this track. So it's not just Lennon McCartney, it's Lennon McCartney Starkey. It is, it sounds like it probably should be one of those country covers that Ringo does
Yes.
so
yes.
well,
Big time. Yes.
but it's not. This is an original.
Wow.
So yeah, but it's very much in Ringo's wheelhouse.
Yes, very
I
much
mean,
so.
there's a reason even now in the year, we're recording this May of 2025, and Ringo Starr's most recent album is a country album.
Yes.
Ringo really likes country, and it works for him.
Mhm.
So, obviously it's another Ringo vocal led song about being heartbroken, by a lover, but Ringo knows what he does. Ringo knows what works for him, so you can't really complain. So I believe Ringo does use this one in concert
I think you might be right.
occasionally.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think if he sang it last time I saw him, to be honest with you. I think he did. I'd have to go double check the set list, but I'm pretty sure he did, but don't quote me on that. So and then another Lennon track, Girl. And he is essentially a guy lamenting about the type of girl that he wants to meet and just hasn't. And he's just so like he's almost like, this girl seems just so unattainable. It's like, and it's like, even if I were to find her, odds are that, she'd be everything I wanted, but at the same time, she would probably break my heart for pick a reason. It's got a little bit of a Greek sound to it. It almost sounds like there's a Greek, like a bouzouki, kind of like a Greek like mandolin type instrument, but it's not. It's just an acoustic guitar played to sound that way. You could almost imagine, a guy, sitting at home, probably in the dark, or maybe with just like a single like small lamp on a table side, sitting in like maybe a big leather chair or something, maybe trying to read a book, but his mind keeps wandering to this dream girl of his, and he just starts lamenting about her, and every now and then he needs to take a moment to collect his thoughts. And as he does, he takes a drag of a cigarette, and that's where you get the breath sounds in this, where he inhales and then just lets it out, like it's like, it's just like his heart and his mind just he just can't. He just kind of can't. It's almost like, to me, it's almost like, this guy knows what he wants, but at the same time, he has this lingering doubt of, if I were to get what I want, would I really be happy, or would I just wind up disappointed?
Right.
So yeah. It's just very just like it's very John. Again,
Mm-hmm.
get a little existential. So back on the Jane Asher trilogy with I'm Looking Through You.
Yep. I thought I knew you.
Mhm. Yeah, it's very much it's very much the song of someone talking to someone that they loved and realizing that they looked up one day and were kind of struck with the realization like I don't really know who you are anymore.
Right.
Like
Something's changed.
yeah, like they were going, down this life path together, and then at some point they diverted and they didn't notice at first until one day they looked up and they're like, wait, I'm over here and you're over there. Or in this case, I'm
Mhm.
up here, you're down there. Which, ouch.
Uh-huh.
Depending on how you want to interpret that, it's like, the only difference is you're down there. Is that like socially? Is that fame wise? Because like I said, Jane had her own career,
Mhm.
but it's not the fame that the Beatles have. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that, she's not necessarily in the same. I mean, they're both in the entertainment business, but it's not the same. So it's like, is he looking down on her just because, his name recognition has just gotten so big that it's all like, sorry, baby, I'm off to better places. Everybody knows my name. The
Mhm.
world is like Cheers. Everybody knows my name. Not that he would have been able to make that reference in the 60s, but yeah, I can now. Um, or is it like, is he again, is it, his ego? I kind of worry about Paul at this point, like he's writing some good music, but at the same time, I'm like, Paul, you're coming off very misogynistic and very egotistical. I'm glad you're not that way now, but I'm just saying, in here, you're coming off as kind of a dick,
Mhm.
which for Paul McCartney is a little weird. No
He's
offense to John,
grown.
but
He's
John kind of,
grown.
John kind of had like the dick thing kind of taken care of. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, they all grew. They all needed to grow. It was just growing pains. They were so young when they started,
Mhm.
and they're still young here, but they're young men. They're not teenagers going into adulthood. They're now adults, um, and living a very adult lifestyle. So, but they're still very immature. is more than anything, I think. Um, so I mean, musically, the track is cool. There's some
Oh yeah.
really cool like guitar riffs in here. Um, it's a little R&B, it's a bit
Mhm.
folky. Um, but um,
Well,
you know,
just the piano towards the end, if memory serves, unless I'm getting that confused with another.
yeah, I think you might be.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it's got this like weird, like almost kind of dirty
Yeah.
guitar, like I'm not a musician, so listen to the track. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Uh, next up, very, very popular Lennon song in my life.
Yes. Yep.
Um,
Been played at numerous weddings. Was the theme song
funerals.
funerals. It was the theme song for a short-lived TV show on NBC by the name of Providence.
Mhm. Yup. um, so yeah, this is a very, very popular Lennon track. Anytime anytime somebody needs a song that is very nostalgic for a life,
Mm-hmm.
of the in the past. Wait, you're being nostalgic, you're looking to the past. This is the track that a lot of people go to, like I said. Weddings, funerals, graduations, take your pick.
Yep.
Anytime you want to evoke nostalgia, this is the song. Though. And this is John very much, this is autobiographical. This is his looking back at his childhood in Liverpool, and what his life was like before the Beatles. And it's it refers to people, places, things, obviously, people that are gone. Even at this point, they've lost people that they've cared about. So, and the obviously the piano kind of solo in it is very recognizable. That is a piano. George Martin, this is one of these places where they pulled George Martin in and was like, this is what we want. He tried it on an organ first, and it just didn't sound right. So he switched to a piano, getting closer. Timing wise, it wasn't working with like the BPM and all that, the time signature of the song. So what George Martin ended up doing is playing that part slower than what is intended, and then speeds it up in the editing process. So it sounds like this kind of it doesn't sound like a standard piano. It sounds like like an electric piano or something. But yeah, no, it's just a regular piano that George Martin figured out how to manipulate him, and that's one of the reasons why they brought him in for this, because he was really good at that. The next is weights, and there's a I don't know if this guy's like what's the word I'm looking for? The critic. There we go. Words. Yeah, I don't know if this guy's a critic or like a historian or what. I think he's like an author, at least. But I don't know what his name is. Jonathan Gold. But he says that weight is a category of Beatles coming home songs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. While another author, Tim Riley, says that it pairs well with It Won't Be Long. So,
I was just about to bring that up. Yep.
Yeah, they kind of have a similar vibe. Yeah. It's like it's singing to a lover, being like, just hold on, I'll be there, I promise, and
not
everything will
pulling
be
out the Sam and Dave hold on, I'm coming, but pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna be there, I promise, and everything will be all hunky dory when I get there. So just hold your horses. It's all gonna be all right. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of more your stereotypical-ish Beatles, but it works. And then another George penned track is "If I Needed Someone," which is his first of what would be many over his career songs written about Patty, Patty Boyd, who he had actually became engaged to that around that same time, and then married her like not long after that. So definitely this has a bit of a Birds feel to it.
Yes.
Although, while it is a love song dedicated to Patty, it leaves a little, it is a little like, because, it's like, if we'd met some other time, maybe things would have worked out, but, I've got this person, I love them, sorry. But if you want to leave me your number just in case,
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's like, not 100% commitment there. I mean, considering that eventually Patty ends up with Eric Clapton,
Right.
I'm just saying.
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
Eric must have been like, okay, she might be possibly available. I'll keep that keep it in the back of my mind.
Maybe. And then Run for Your Life, which is,
until you really look at the lyrics later on, it's like, whoa, okay, dark.
Yeah, it is very misogynistic.
I mean, yes, Nancy Sinatra did gender swap it and re-record it, but still.
In John's defense, this was really a filler song. Because because of the way the size of albums you're literally have a size constraint of what size a record is, and can only hold so much on each side. So they needed so many songs at certain lengths to flesh out the album. So this is one of those. And John really doesn't care for it, actually. This is one of those that's left over from Help. And it's just John as it's not one of it's like one of his least favorites. So I mean, if you just listen to the music, it's like, oh yeah, it's very catchy, it's very upbeat guitar and some drumming from Ringo. And then you listen to the lyrics and you're like, wait a minute.
Exactly.
At first it's all like, oh, it's like, oh, yeah. Like, I'm a jealous guy.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, yeah. I mean, that's a bit coming from somebody who's maybe a bit insecure, but it happens. We're human. We do get jealous. But then he's like, I'd rather see you dead than with another man. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah. Excuse me?
Pardon moi?
Yeah. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Let's try that again.
Yeah. So that is the UK version. Obviously, as I said, they removed Dry My Car, Nowhere Man, What Goes On, and If I Needed Someone. Although those would all go on Yesterday and Today in 66. So and those 4 songs were replaced with I've Just Seen a Face and It's Only Love. So I've Just Seen a Face, a very sweet, love song from Paul. It's love at first sight. It's very up tempo. It's a little country, it's a little western. And I mean, this could be the beginning, more happy part of the McCartney-Asher relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's a very Paul song, to be honest with you. It's not anything that's like groundbreaking, I don't think, but it's a good song. It's cute. And then It's Only Love, and it was on UK release of the Help album. So, so it just goes to show, depending on what side of the pond you're on, you might be hearing a Beatles track at a different time than the people on the other side of the pond.
At least it's not as bad as Unit Dating for releases for time.
That's true. It's a Lennon, it's a John song. Its working title was "That's a Nice Hat."
What? Okay.
That was the working title. That's a nice hat.
I think wasn't yesterday scrambled eggs.
That's true. Oh, again, not one of John's favorites. He doesn't care for the lyrics. It's it's again, it's interesting that they put that on the US release. I guess because it had not been released in the US yet, because it was only on the UK release of Help, I guess. So I don't know what the thought process was for,
unless it was getting traction somewhere on a radio station. They put two and two together and realized, oh, they're playing that off on the UK album. We might need to get it in gear and put it on the American. I mean, I'm just spitballing. I don't know.
I mean, I'm just gonna kind of point and be like, it's Capitol Records' fault.
Infinite wisdom and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was company policy that their releases needed to be altered somewhat compared to the UK releases, but still, it's like the 4 tracks that they removed are all pretty good, though.
Good, yeah.
Exactly. Drive My Car.
Yeah,
that's a good one. Like I said, Paul still sings that one. It's still part of his set list. Nowhere Man. I guess I don't know. I mean, comparatively, if you're talking lyrics, Nowhere Man is definitely deeper than It's Only Love. If you're talking John Lennon lyrics, What Goes On? Sorry, Ringo. You're not gonna get a lead vocal song in the US, I guess. And If I Needed Someone, I mean, that's a good track as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I Just Seen a Face, It's Only Love, they're okay. I prefer I've Just Seen a Face over It's Only Love. Just because I think the stylization of I've Just Seen a Face is interesting. And different. Again, that's my personal opinion. So those are the tracks. Obviously, the artwork, like I said, shot in John's garden. The title is supposed to be a pun. I don't know how well that goes over if you're not British, maybe. I don't know. It's supposed to be a play on the term plastic soul, which was slang for white musicians trying to sound black.
Okay.
Apparently, Paul heard someone using it referring to the Beatles and thought it was funny. I don't. There's supposed to also be something about the falseness of pop music and rubber-soled shoes. Again, it's one of those that kind of depends on who you talk to, I think. On what exactly, in 1966, Ringo at a press conference, they called it to acknowledge that in comparison to American soul artists, we are white and haven't got what they got.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just kind of depends on which Beatle you talk to, on what exactly the title meant. So something to note on the cover, obviously very iconic. The font for Rubber Soul is very cool. You know, that shot of the guys with the foliage behind them and that warped. The Beatles' name does not appear on the sleeve.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, they had a lot more creative control over everything, and that was on purpose. So. Okay. EMI released in the UK December 1965. We Can Work It Out / Day Tripper was released as a double A side single.
Cool.
That was a first. The EMI had pressed 750,000 copies to cater to local demand. It had advanced orders of 500,000. On the day that the album was released, actually, the Beatles were performing in Glasgow, and that would actually mark the start of what would be their final UK tour. And so yeah, like I said, it's their 6th studio album. In the US, it's their 10th album. So yeah, the diehard Beatle fans were a little confused, because here's a quote from Mark Myers, a historian and journalist. He says, for most American teens, the arrival of the Beatles' Rubber Soul was unsettling. Instead of cheerleading for love, the album songs held cryptic messages about thinking for yourself, the hypnotic power of women, something called getting high and bedding down with the opposite sex. Clearly, growing up wasn't going to be easy.
Well,
yeah. Apparently, the band's official fanzine, Beatles Monthly, got write-ins from fans that said that the cover photo made their heroes look like corpses.
okay.
Well, I guess that's because they didn't know what being stoned to look like, I guess.
I mean, they don't look that pale to me, but then again,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Although even some fans who may have been hesitant at first came around, because according to Elvis Costello, a bit famous in his own right, was 11 at the time.
Ooh.
And got the album and thought that the band had lost their minds.
That must have been an interesting conversation Paul had during the making of Flowers in the Dirt.
Probably. Costello said, I didn't understand a word. I didn't think it was any good. And then 6 weeks later, you couldn't live without the record. And that's good. That's when you trust the people who make music to take you somewhere you haven't been before. Yes, and obviously Elvis Costello continued to be a fan and has since worked the Beatles in their solo careers. So yeah, even though the fans may have taken a bit of warming up to it, their contemporaries and critics actually really loved it, like almost off the bat. So,
and that's usually saying a lot coming from the critics.
Yes. Yeah. Music historian Bill Martin said Rubber Soul was a turning point for pop music, and that for the first time, the album rather than the song became the basic unit of artist production. Author David Howard's description, pop stakes had been raised into the stratosphere. Even the I don't know who Steve Turner is. Oh, yeah, another author. He said, by galvanizing the Beatles' most ambitious rivals in Britain and America, Rubber Soul launched the pop equivalent of an arms race. And Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys described Rubber Soul as the first album I listened to where every song was a gas. And if you don't know Ling, your slang, that is good. Something being a gas, that's a compliment. And actually, he started working on Pet Sounds as an attempt to surpass it, which is saying a lot considering that Pet Sounds in turn would influence the Beatles to do Sgt. Pepper.
Sgt. Pepper, yeah.
So,
competition, what can you say? Healthy competition like that, everybody benefits.
Yeah. I mean, it influenced a lot of people. Pete Townsend of The Who.
Yep.
Ray Davies of the Kinks.
Jimi
Mick Jagger and
Hendrix.
Keith Richards. Who ended the Rolling Stones issued their first album of all original material in 1966, in April of 66. Even though Dylan had influenced the Beatles, this in turn influenced him. Stevie Wonder, the Byrds. John Cale recalled that Rubber Soul was an inspiration as he and Lou Reed developed Velvet Underground. He said it was the first time you were forced to deal with them as something other than a flash in the pan. And especially admired Harrison's introduction of Indian sounds because, yes, the sitar does make an appearance several times on the album. And something that would become a semi-regular thing if it's a George, if it's got a George influence to it. So once George discovered the sitar, all bets were off. So yeah, it was a big influence. It even now, all these years later, has still, you see its influence. It's it appears on a ton of lists, all-time top 1000 albums, best album of all time. That's from VH1 in 2000. Since 2001, it is number 6 on VH1's best albums of all time list. By Mojo, number 27, Rolling Stone, number 5. It's among Time Magazine selection of all-time 100 albums in 2006. It was favored over Revolver. I mean, the Beatles outdoing themselves. In Christmas book, 101 albums that changed popular music. In 2012, Rolling Stone again placed at number 5 in the magazine's revive list of 500 greatest albums of all time. Rolling Stone's 2014 list of 40 most groundbreaking albums of all time. Yeah. It was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2000, which is an award bestowed by the American Recording Academy to honor recordings of lasting qualitative or historical significance that are at least 25 years old. So, yeah. And as we said, throughout the years, remasters, re-releases. It was first released on CD in 87, with the 14 song UK lineup. That is now considered the international standard. It features a contemporary stereo digital remix that is done by George Martin, but still,
there was an original stereo mix done by EMI that he just didn't care for, so he actually went back to the original 4-track and remixed those for stereo. I still prefer mono. Another remastered version using George Martin's 87 remix, released worldwide as part of a reissue of the entire Beatles catalog in 2009. It's available both as an individual CD release and part of the Beatles original studio recordings box set. The Beatles in Mono box set contains 2 versions of the album, the original mono mix and the 65 stereo mix. And Capitol re-released it in 2006 using original mixes of the Capitol album, then in 2014 individually, and in the box set the US albums. So there you go. That is Rubber Soul. A very, very good album.
Yes.
In my humble opinion.
No song that I would not press the skip button on. I mean, I might go back and like, hey, let's replay that.
Definitely in the UK version.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The US version, thankfully, the UK version, as I said, has become kind of the standard.
Yes.
That particular track list, that's the way you're going to find it.
Yes.
For the most part. So, but yeah, it is, yeah. It's really good. It's the thing is you almost have to either have to know your history, like your rock history, or it's one of those that it's like it's more like you almost have to listen to the Beatles catalog in chronological order.
Yep.
To hear the difference is the thing. Because it's like you think of the Beatles and like certain songs come to mind, but I don't think people necessarily think of those songs in the greater like chronology and evolution. And that's partially why, we do these episodes that, the Beatles are the best band of all time. No offense to Queen and Metallica, but, Beatles forever. In my book. And yeah, I mean, if we wanted to, we could have done these in chronological order and talked about the evolution, but I think that's been done,
Right. And I like our jumping around or wibbly wobbly timey wimey. So we're like, hey, this is kind of a callback we're seeing from this, or hey, if you pay attention, you might see something like this coming down later down the line.
Yeah. Because it's always, especially because, we're doing this in all this time after. So, obviously hindsight, being able to see the big picture helps. But yeah, being able to kind of jump around and take note of like, oh, this is like this, or, this is we can see that this is going to lead into this other thing. So it's kind of I think it makes for an interesting and kind of different analysis when you can compare and contrast what came before and what's coming after. Not that we couldn't do that even if we did it chronologically, but it's just that we have the bigger picture. And that's like, I think that's all we need. Like I mentioned this before in college. I took a music of the Beatles class.
Oh, I am so jealous. I wish my university would have offered that class because I would have signed up for that right away.
You do not know, like every semester.
I'm sure it was booked.
I would have to sign, when I go to sign up for classes. And my guidance person would be like, this is, you're on track to get these credits and this credit, I'm going to be working towards my degree. And
they'd be like, okay, you need to take this class and this class, and some classes were only offered like in the fall versus in the spring and stuff. And I had to get
sometimes
like the
every other
required
semester in the fall or the spring.
And it's like I had to get like the required stuff out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
But in the process, a lot of times those would be taking place at the same time as that class. So it's like it took forever before I could fit it into my schedule.
And dagnabbit, I'm gonna take it.
Yes. And once I finally did, I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And it was so good. And I don't have my copy of the book that we used, because somewhere in graduation and getting rid of old textbooks and stuff, it went bye-bye, even though that is not a book I wanted to get rid of, because I had my notes in it. That was the nice thing about it, is we were allowed to
that
like,
was
write...
more like a very sad, why did I do that?
Yeah, because we were able to like write our own notes in the book, and then when we'd have our like tests, it was open book. So any notes we had in there, we could use those as well. But they had to be in the book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. But at some point in the last, I don't know how many years, my mom came across the same book at like a yard sale.
Oh, nice.
And she was like, do you want this? I'm like, yes. Oh my God. I was like, it may not be my copy, but it's a copy of the book we use. And what the book does is it goes through chronologically each album and each track and gives you all the information, dates, who plays what was going on at the time, any trivia, any whatever. So I've done the chronological Beatles catalog analysis already. So, and this is also years later. I've grown more. I've gotten to, obviously listen to the catalog more, got to know the history better. I've gotten to see Paul several times. I've seen Ringo a few times. So I just have a different appreciation also now. And so I think that brings a slightly different perspective, I think, as well. So anyway, soapbox, I will get off. Because you get me on my Beatles soapbox, and I'm just like, what?
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's my thing. It's my jam. So, any other thoughts, comments?
Nope. Looking forward to the next one whenever we get around to it.
Well, we still have some more to cover. So.
Oh, I know we do.
Yeah, we still have another feature film. And an album to go with.
Yep.
Proper
album.
Well,
Yep.
I say proper feature film with the actual Beatles. We also have Yellow Submarine, which, spoilers, other than the music and the cameo at the end, that's not the Beatles' voices talking.
Nope.
It looks like the Beatles. Or dressed like the Beatles.
Oh yeah. Well, just
they
like
even sound like the Beatles.
Like the Beatles, because that 1960s cartoon that they did for the Beatles.
Yes.
With the sing-alongs sounded like them, but it wasn't them.
Nope. So, the singing is them.
Oh yeah.
And they do make a cameo at the end. But yeah, otherwise, that's not the Beatles. So, I mean, it is feature length, but it's not, it's not the Beatles. So, it's still very good though. That's one of my desert island movies. There's a reason I've done that on Drunk Cinema. Yellow Submarine. Also, it's very psychedelic, so it works very well for a podcast where you get progressively drunk. Especially when I concocted my own cocktail of a Blue Meanie. So you have to go listen to that. Go listen to that episode of Drunk Cinema for, I think I give the recipe. I do air quotes because I don't really measure properly when making cocktails, but I can tell you what ingredients went in it.
Oh, a splash of this, a splash of that, a splash of this.
We'll splash of this, splash of that, until it looks like the right color.
Yep.
If it's a shade of blue that works for you, go ahead.
Yep. If we're talking TARDIS blue, probably a little bit too much, but
yeah. So, oh my. Maybe I'll remember. If I remember, I'll link to that episode in the show notes.
Sounds good.
Listen to Rachel and Zan and Charles talk about Yellow Submarine. All right. Well, if any of our listeners want to give us their 2 cents on Rubber Soul or the Beatles as a whole or whatever, as my mouse decides to absolutely freak out on me, you can send us feedback just like Charlene did by emailing us fivishfangirls@gmail.com, or you can go to our website, which is thefivishfangirls.com, where you can connect with all of our various social media accounts and our individual ones as well, along with links to things like the Goodreads book club, where we talk about discuss either Doctor Who book or Big Finish audio every month, and those discussions are always ongoing. And as we have mentioned, our summer schedule is already set, so you don't have to worry about voting for a little bit. So you can just go jump right in whenever you feel like it. So there's that. If you wish to financially support us, you can do so via Patreon. If you are so inclined, want to become a regular monthly supporter, or if you want to be a one-time supporter and get a little something in exchange, you can buy merch, which is available on Redbubble. Again, links on the website. So, all right. Well, with that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany Bagel saying goodnight. This is Sally from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I will conclude with this quote from Morgan Ames from Hi-Fi Stereo Review magazine about Rubber Soul. The Beatles sound more and more like music. Their blend is excellent, their performance smooth, and their charm, wit, and excitement run high. Thank you, our Fiveish fam, for joining us on this week's geeky journey. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Stay connected with us on our website, thefivishfangirls.com, and follow us on most social media with @FivishFangirls. Plus, check out our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back, to see how we're making a positive impact in our community. Until next time, stay nerdy and let the squee continue.